All right. So I'm just gonna show you guys what it looks like when you're starting a project from scratch. And technically, we're not really starting a project from scratch because we almost have some boilerplate code that we start with. Boilerplate just means like code that you have to write that's almost always written the same way, like that like scaffolds your project, right? So like Angular has a lot of boilerplate code because once again, let me close some of this stuff and find an Angular project. Angular has a lot of boilerplate code because it has all these module files and stuff, and a lot of code that's the same way for pretty much every project you write or that you create. So like, for example, when you do like ng new or something, it always creates a module file and an app component. All these files, right? They're always there in every Angular project, right? You always have an app component, HTML, app component, TypeScript, and CSS, and an app.module file. And you always have the index. All these files are always there every time you make an Angular project. So that's boilerplate code that Angular happens to make for you. And it's code that you pretty much always need most of the time. Some of it you might not use. Some of it's only specific things, but most of it is stuff that you need in your project. So that's why they just do it for you, and it's always there whenever you make an Angular project. So that's boilerplate code. Yeah, ng new when you, I haven't done it yet for the new project I'm going to be making, but yeah, ng new. It's all the boilerplate that's created when you do ng new and then give it a project name and stuff. And the node modules, right? And the
Yeah, just a quick question. When you build the backend, do you always put it in a separate directory? Or
yeah, I always do.
would you?
There's other ways of doing it, but I've just found that it's easier, at least for me and most people I've worked with, to keep them in both. That you at least keep them in separate repositories. But you can open up like both folders in the same window in VS Code, like the same workspace if you want. But pretty much always keep the front end and the API in separate project folders and separate repos. You can't put them together. There's this thing called a mono repo, I think. I've never actually done one. I don't know exactly why you would do one. I don't know a lot about them. But a mono repo is a software development strategy where code for many projects is stored in the same repository. It's kind of an older, it's kind of an older way of doing things, I guess. And I don't really know if there's advantages to doing that, to be honest. I can't think of any reason to do that, but there might be one. But generally, you just keep them in with that map image. Oh, I just closed that. What was I looking at? What barn was that? Oh, well, it was Santa Rosa. I looked up how far away Santa Rosa was. Yeah. But yeah, monorepo is when you have like two repos, so you could have your front end and your back end in one repo. And there's a specific way you have to do that, I think, but I've never done one. I've always just thought most people that I've known just think it's easier to have them in two separate repos and two different project folders. So, but yeah, monorepos do exist. Google uses one apparently. Why do they? Makes it easy to include code across directories, simplifying dependency management. It seems like something that you would only do if you have a specific reason to in a bigger scale project like what Google does. So yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't do it, especially if you're just beginning. So but you can't have them in separate folders and separate repos and just open them both up in your workspace in VS Code. If that works better for you. I don't like doing that, but I could see why you might like having both in one. I usually just switch windows and have two windows open. But yeah. All right. So boilerplate code is all the code that you must write to do a certain thing, and you must write it every time. Sometimes it's generated for you. Sometimes you have to write it yourself. So in Angular, we have all this stuff that's generated for us. Module files, the app component files, stuff like that. Main.ts, all this stuff. So you should always save your backend and frontend in separate folders. Is it considered bad practice to have them in the same file location? I think it is. For Angular, at least. In the same file location. Like in the same folder? Yeah, I don't know if you would be able to do that. Like, because you have to run CLI commands for both of them, like separate CLI commands, command line commands. So I don't know if that would work if you have them both in the same folder. I feel like you would run into problems doing that. I mean, you could have a folder. You could have a folder. What you could do, which might make sense, is make a folder like in here, like mkdir, and this is my. Oh, I hadn't thought of what I was going to do. I'm going to recreate something. Oh, Gmail. What you could do is do Gmail clone. Make another folder, and then you can put both of your project folders inside that folder, which that might make sense. So they're still in separate folders, but they're grouped inside of another like parent folder, like for the whole project. Because you have two repos, basically, like in a front end and a back end for the same project that are in separate folders, but you can put those two folders, yeah, in another one. So that might make sense. I might do that for this one. I should probably do that for a lot of things, actually. Because in my work projects, right, directory, it's just all this stuff. And you have like mobile repositories for the mobile project, and then you have the API, and then there's like front end stuff, like for Angular repos. So I should probably group these into their own folders. That would make sense. So I'll do that for mine. So I'm going to make a clone of Gmail. I'm just going to try to recreate Gmail as close as possible, because I know at least a couple of you are probably doing like email clients. So I'm just going to try to recreate Gmail, or at least most of it. All these icons look like a pain in the butt. So I'll just do the basics probably. Most of it. I'll see how far I can go. Probably not very far, but we'll see. All right, so I'm going to try to recreate Gmail. So to start this, we just need a front end and a back end, just the basic starters for both. And usually, in most projects, you start with the API first, because the front end is displaying data from the API. And if you do the API first, then you can save yourself time having to like make fake data to show on your front end. Like you can do the API first and then make the front end on top of it and pull data from the API in your database and stuff. And that, so you don't have to like make fake data to show on your front end when your API isn't made, if that makes sense. So usually you do the API first. So I'm going to start that. All right. So I'm going to start, I'm going to cd to my Gmail clone folder. And I'm going to make my API first. So with Express, it doesn't have nice command line interface like Angular does. That just generates, you know, the whole project for us basically for starter. So we can't have to do it ourselves. So I'm going to do mkdir for make dir. That just makes a folder. Make directory is what it's short for, but it just makes a folder. Folders and directories are kind of interchangeable. So I'm going to do mkdir Gmail clone API. So having a good logical naming convention is important for all of your repos. You should usually do this kind of like format, like lowercase, separated by hyphens. If you don't do this exactly, that's okay, as long as you don't have spaces or something, some weird characters. That's fine. As long as you're consistent and it works, then that's mostly what matters. But for me and at Lamar Software, we like lowercase and words separated by hyphens. And if it's we just have the project name, and then we have either front or API at the end. So we can tell at a glance whether it's the API repo or the Angular or whatever front end we're using repo. So I want to make this project folder inside my Gmail clone folder. So I'm going to make Gmail clone API. And then I'm going to cd into that. And then I'm going to use code dot to open it. All right, now we have absolutely nothing in here. But we need to make a node API, right? So we need to make this an npm connected directory or folder, which we've done before. Does anyone remember what command it is to initialize it as an npm folder? Initializing with npm.
npm init.
Yes, thank you. npm init inside my API folder that I just made. Boom, it'll ask some questions. We don't care about most of these. Blah, blah, blah. Cool, and it made our package.json. And then we need...
so do you normally leave all that blank when you go into those options?
Yeah, none of them really matter, honestly. The entry point kind of matters because that's like how it knows. It's like the JavaScript file that npm knows that is like the entry point for the whole project. So we should name our JavaScript file the same as this. But besides that, it doesn't really matter, most of these.
Okay, gotcha.
Unless you're like making an npm package and publishing it. But that's not what we're doing, so this doesn't really matter. Or if you want to be like really official or something. But yeah, I'm not. So it's just made our package.json like this. All right, so we have our scripts. We don't have any scripts yet. We don't have any dependencies yet because there's no dependency section. I'm going to make, before we keep going, I'm going to make an index.js file. So we have a JavaScript file. And I'm going to be referencing that same Express API that we've been using as an example for this whole time. So instead of app.js, I have index.js. That doesn't matter too much. It's just a different name. I think normally you have app.js. Normally, it doesn't really matter the name of the JavaScript file. But if we look here and see what packages we're going to need obviously Express. We're going to need all these things really. So we have Express, obviously, because we're using Express for our framework to make our endpoints and stuff. body parser is needed to parse the body from JSON, right? When you make a post request or a put request and you send a body from the front end, you have to parse that so that you can read it in your endpoint. So that's why we do this middleware here. Cores is just something you need. I don't know how to explain cores. It's like a security thing that you have to enable, I guess. But this is just a package that we need. Another middleware thing. So that's just 2 import statements and then these 2 lines of code. Oh, where was that? I just scrolled past it. Where'd it go? Am I blind? Oh yeah, here. I am blind. So that's just 2 import statements and these 2 lines of code. And that's all we do with those. And then jot and bcrypt, we use jot to encode our objects for user information and for authentication, to create the token that we store in local storage in the front end that we then send back to the API when we make requests to show that the user is logged in. Bcrypt is what we use to encrypt and decrypt passwords when we store them in the database. MySQL is what we use to make a connection to our database. And then this is just using Express here. Oh, and then .env so that we use our env file. Right, need a package for that. So I'm just going to copy these and then I'll add some comments. Copy all these. Boom. And then I'm going to add some comments explaining.
The npm install each one, or do you just?
We can do them all with one command. We don't have to run individual commands for each one. I'll show you in a second. You can just.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, we do have to do all of them, but we can do them all in one command. Express is the node framework. Might technically be a library, but I'll just call it framework for now. Middleware. Body parser. Jots. We used to encode and decode objects to use as authentication tokens. Bcrypt is what we use to encode and decode passwords. Cores is something else that we need to run in our middleware, I guess. I'm not sure how to explain cores since I don't really understand what exactly it is, but there it is. Just a couple lines, so you don't need to know. And this is the package that we use to connect to a MySQL database. And this an instance of and then this, yeah, explains itself. All right. So now we have all these imports. With some nice comments explaining. So we're gonna have to install these packages. We know that we need these. I don't think we need any other ones because we only have this one file, right? We know that this is a working API mostly, and we know that it's just using all of these packages. So I don't think we need any more. We can just look in the package.json also and look at the dependencies section. And yeah, this is all we need. So we can do, I think to do multiple npm installs with one command, you just do npm x whatever package name and I think it's, I can't remember exactly. Let me look it up. Install multiple npm packages at once. I think it's just 2 ands separating each. Oh, you don't even need the and. You just do package after package. Okay. So we just do this express and then body parser, JSON web token, decrypt, cores, is equal to promise. Is that it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, and .env 7. So we can install all these at once just by doing npmi, and then you have each package separated by a space, and we'll just install all of them one after another. Probably take a minute. Continue connecting. Yes.
Hey, Connor.
Yeah.
What's the difference between MySQL and MySQL 2 Promise?
Oh, we should be installing MySQL and not MySQL 2 Promise. Let me put this. So MySQL 2 is the actual npm package, and then MySQL 2/promise is like a part of it. So I think I don't remember exactly why we do that. But when you do like a slash like that, that's like a part of the npm package. I don't remember why we do /promise. It's here that it looks like they can do the same thing. Use default promise object available in script. You can choose which promise implementation. Oh, I guess there's different implementations inside this package. I don't really know what the differences are, to be honest. But there's, yeah, you can, some packages have like different parts to them that you can like specify that you want to like import from. And that's what this is. I don't remember why we do /promise for this, but it's just a part of the MySQL package. It's like they have different ways to do the same thing, and this is the way that we're doing it, I guess. I suppose. All right, so it looks like it installed all of our dependencies. 3, 4, 5, 6. setting. All right. So now that we have all those, we can start on the, oh, all the consts came from the boilerplate. Yeah, all this is considered a boilerplate. Because we're gonna need these for pretty much every Express project, right? Or at least something like it. Like there's other packages that can do my thing that MySQL is doing, or that body parser or jot, but these are like the main ones. So you can just copy and paste, yeah. And there's also other stuff you can just copy and paste. So like we're gonna have to make a database connection, right? Oh yeah, so we need a database connection and we need some middleware and we need our app.listen function. That's also boilerplate because we need to do that for every single project, right? For Express, you always have to run app.listen and you need to make your MySQL connection in your middleware. So we can just, so right after our .env require, we can do this. So const port comes from, oh, what we should do first actually is make our env file. So we're gonna need our env file that has our credentials for connecting to our database. And that'll probably be the same for every project you do, except for the database name, because different databases will be connecting to different projects will be connecting to different databases for each project, right? So you're logging into the same server, but you're accessing a different database on that server for each project, probably. And then you'll probably have a different jot key too. Usually a jot key is a random string of characters to make it more secure, but I'm just leaving it like this because it doesn't matter for what we're doing. And then you have the port that you want to listen on. That's usually the same also. So I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to make my new env file, env in the root. My project, and then paste this. And then I'm not doing car data because this is a different project, right? I'm going to make another database. I'm going to call it Gmail_data. Gmail clone. Oh. Gmail clone _data. All right. So this is what I'm going to name my new database schema when I make it. So I'm going to go ahead and make it right now, actually. So I'm going to go to Workbench. Someday. You might need to close it and then reopen it. Oh, it was open. It just wasn't showing. There we go. So we're going to use the same connection for everything else, right? So I just use localhost for everything. I mean email data. So I'm going to make my database Gmail clone data, like I named it here. So I just go here, I right click down here, create schema, and give it the name, and then apply. Close. And here is the schema. This doesn't have any tables or anything, but just make sure that it's named the same as what you have in here. So notice if I go back here, when you first open up Workbench, the information that you put in here when you make your localhost connection, you have the name, the host name, well, it's the what's it called, IP address you're hosting it on. 127.0.0.1 is localhost. So we would name localhost, serve it on this IP, on this port, with this username, which is associated with your SQL server, right? This is what you should have made when you installed MySQL. And then your password, right? Mine is stored here, and then you enter it here. And then that's it. So whatever you used to make your connection is what you should have in here. So I have root localhost at port 3306, localhost root port 3306, and then the password is here. All right. And then you specify whichever database you want to connect to with that connection. So I just made Gmail clone data, and that's what I'm trying to connect to. Gmail clone data. And that's what I'll be adding data to later. Okay, and then you just have jotkey and port. Those are your jotkey will be different per project in like the real world, but for now we just have this. And then port will probably be the same for every project. So made this. So now we have our process.env available. Now we can go ahead and start making our middleware. So we have port, and then we make our connection, or we start making our connection here with const pool equals MySQL dot create pool. A connection pool is just like you could make more than one connection using this, I think, but this is just what you do to start to like make an instance of your MySQL thing, and then you can connect to it. But we just need these. We need this port variable for down here, and we do app.listen. And then we need this obviously for making our connection to MySQL. So I'm going to copy and paste both of these. Okay. And then we need this middleware. This will probably be the same. I don't think anything here needs to change. We just have this try catch block inside this function where we create .db. So request initially doesn't have .db. That's what we're doing here. We were creating a property on this object, and we're making it equal to pool.getConnection. So this will be our connection from now on, request.db. And we can use that later on in our endpoints to make queries to the database. And then this lets us use this syntax with the object, which is normally what you want. Without this set to true, named placeholders, right, set to true, then you wouldn't be able to do this. You would have to do it another way, which isn't as easy to read, believe it or not. This way is easier to read than the other way, than the other syntax, which you guys haven't learned, but just need this line so we can use this syntax with like the object placeholders when you're inserting stuff, right, in your where statements and stuff like that. So that's what this line is for. Then we just do a couple queries to set the mode, like SQL mode, traditional. I don't remember what exactly changes between the different modes. Yeah, I don't remember what changes, but that's just usually what we use is traditional mode. And we set the time zone, and then we just do await next, so it continues on. And then after it hits an endpoint, await next will resolve, and then it will go to request.db.release, which will release the connection that you don't want to keep alive after you've made a request, right? So that makes a request, it receives a request, makes a connection, resolves the request in an endpoint, and then it releases the connection. So you don't want to keep it stayed connected all the time, because that can cause memory leak and eat up your memory and possibly crash your server. Since when you're if you're serving it out in the real world, then it's going to be on hopefully 24 hours a day. But if you have a connection there the whole 24 hours, then it will eat up your memory. And then if there's an error, then we need to release it then too, and then throw the error. So all this is going to be the same for pretty much every project also. right? You're gonna need to do this or something very similar to this um, in every project, every Express project you make, at least for one like this. You need to do at least something like this. Obviously, larger projects that need more stuff will have more middleware, but you'll at least need something very similar to this. All right, so I'm just going to copy and paste this. And while I'm at it, I'm going to copy and paste these too, because the core is middleware and then the body parser thing, we also need those. So that's just a couple more lines. I'm just going to copy and paste this and then put that down here. Then everything else, like you'll probably have /user or /authentication. Well, this /user was something else, but you'll probably have like a register endpoint and like a login endpoint or something for every project. But those will probably look a little different project to project, depending on what you're doing. So that's not necessarily boilerplate. This is just some functionality. Similar functionality isn't necessarily boilerplate, because just because you'll have an endpoint for logging in and an endpoint for registering in every project, most likely, doesn't mean that these endpoints are going to be doing exactly the same thing. So I'm not going to copy and paste these. We'll just do what we need to do here as we go along. So the only other thing that we need before we start making our own endpoints is the app.listen. Oh, there's also one other thing too, I think. So we need the app.listen at the very end of our file. Here. All right. Demo app, I'm gonna name this, change this console log. All this is the console log. I'm just gonna change this to Gmail. Gmail clone API. Okay. Gmail clone API listening at localhost. That's going to be 3000. All right. And then I think the only other thing we might need is the middleware for the jot. So let me take a look at this and see, where was that? We can do this later, but where was that? Oh, here it is. So I think this is mostly going to be the same also. Like all this stuff is stuff that we need probably in this middleware. So remember, the verified jot middleware checks to see if there's authorization in the header, or a valid token, which will be our jot, before it goes on and hits one of these endpoints. So we're going to want this here. So I'm going to copy and paste this also. So we'll probably also need this. Okay. And then I'm just going to probably put it after here, right? So it goes after the rest of our middleware and after our register and login endpoints, which we haven't made yet. It has to go before the rest of our endpoints also. So I'm just going to paste it here. I'm going to get rid of the console logs for now. And this comment. And also this. All right. I should probably put this try catch around this whole thing. Yeah. So I'm going to.
Which ones did you just copy and paste?
Just this one, verify jot, that middleware function. Just the whole thing. And then I just got rid of the console logs. And it's on line 149, kind of, somewhere around there. All right. So we have this. I'm going to move the try block. So there should be a try catch around this whole thing. So I'm going to move this part of the try block all the way up to the top to catch any errors in here at all. And do a little formatting. Okay. And I think that's all we need for the boilerplate for our Express app.
Hey Connor, can you show that part again? What did you move up with the try?
Oh yeah, it was where was it? It was down here, like in the middle, and I just moved it this try with this curly bracket. So I'm just moving all of this inside of this block, basically, by moving this up.
Gotcha.
And then
you said you got rid of all the console logs?
Yeah, for now at least, because those were just for like debugging and stuff that I didn't need. So, well, all of them except for the one that's console logging the error. You should almost always console log the error that you're getting. So here, it throws an error. I think when you throw it, it still logs it to the console, but I'm gonna add a console log just in case.
Could you explain what that block of code does?
The try part?
The whole verify job block?
Yeah, so basically looks at the headers for the request, and it looks for the authorization header. So remember, I don't have, where's my front end? Did I have it open? I didn't. So if you remember, in the front end, we add the jot to the header. So like here, when we register or log in, it stores it in local storage. And then when we make other requests, we add the jot. We get it from local storage, add it to the header, the authorization header, right? So bearer space jot. So that way the API knows that we're logged in. So you want to register or log in first, and then any of these protected routes that fetch like theoretically sensitive information, right? You want to make sure that the person making the request has a valid token, which would mean that they're logged in, because the valid token gets set when they log in or register. So that's why we add it to the header. So we add it to the header, and then in our middleware here, we're checking the header. And if there isn't an authorization header at all, it throws an error, and then it'll stop, and it won't continue on to our endpoints, right? Because the person making the request isn't logged in, right? So we don't want to let them actually retrieve whatever information they're trying to retrieve. So it checks to see if there is an authorization header. If there's not, it throws an error. 401 is the code for unauthorized. Then if there is one, it'll keep going. And then it splits the header, right? So it does request.headers.authorization.split on an empty space. So that just turns this string into an array split on the space. So bearer would be the first element in the array. And the jot would be the second element in the array. And we're just destructuring that array. We're getting scheme, which would be the first part, which would be bearer, and then token would be the second element, which would be the jot. And then I was just console logging it. And then if there is no bearer scheme, so it has to have the word bearer in it at the beginning. And if that isn't there, then it throws an error and it stops and it doesn't keep going. And if it is there, then it does keep going. And then we do jot.verify to make sure that the token that's in the header was made with the jot key, right? So it decodes it and also checks to see if it expired. I think there's an expire time in the jot too. I don't remember if we set that somewhere. I don't think so, but it might be there by default. Basically, it just uses the jot key. So we use the jot key when we create the jot, and then we use it here to make sure that this token was created using this key. Because we don't want to decode a jot that's coming from some other source, except for this API. We want to make sure that the token is valid and is coming from this API, right? It was created from this API with this jot key. So that's what jot.verify is doing. And then if that is fine, then it doesn't throw an error. And then we just set request.user equals to the payload. Payload will be the object that's decoded from the jot. So that would be just the user information. And if the jot is not valid, this will throw an error, and then it will go to this catch block. And this is just basically, let me make this look a little nicer somehow. Error.message and there. All right, so basically if there's an error message and if the error message includes one of these things, it just throws an error. That's basically just what it's doing. App.emit, I don't remember what this does exactly. It admits it is a specific error. I don't remember why we don't just throw an error here, but basically if the jot is not valid, it throws an error, then this catch block will run and it just will stop here basically and throw the error and it won't continue. This is all just to specify what kind of error it is, but because oh yeah, so when you do jot.verify, if it's expired, then the error message that it will throw is jot expired. And if it's not made using this jot key, then the message will say invalid token. So it's just checking for those two things. And then throwing the error message based off of those, I guess. But basically, this whole function is just checking to see if there's an authorization header. If there is one, then it checks to see if it has bearer at the beginning, and then it takes the token. And then it takes the token, checks to see if it's valid. And if all those things are true, then it will just continue on. And it will make request.user into something that we can use later. And then we'll continue on to an endpoint. If any of those three things, if it doesn't have a header, or if it does have a header, but it doesn't have the right scheme, or if it doesn't have the right valid token, if any of those three things conditions aren't met, then it will throw an error and it will prevent the request from going on to any of these endpoints. So that's what this is doing. It's kind of doing a lot of stuff, but really it's also kind of also just doing one thing and checking to see if we have a valid authorization header in our request. So once you go through it and understand it once, it doesn't really change a whole lot, the logic. There might be a neater way to write this, or there might not be, I don't know. But this is kind of boilerplate because you basically do the same thing in every project for this. So you can just copy and paste. Just like I did here. And I just moved the try block up to encompass all of these lines of code. Okay. Any other questions so far? All right, let's take a break. You don't have to be following along, by the way. I'm assuming most of you are at least listening, but you don't have to. If you just want to work on your project while I'm going through this, you can. I'm recording anyway, so it's up to you guys. But let's take a break. Let's take a 15-minute, come back at 5 or 4:47-ish, somewhere around there. And then I'll keep going. Can you explain what and where the JOT key comes from? It says the same as the token. So the JOT key comes from .env. So everything that's process.env is referring to this file. So process.env.jot key is in the .env file. It's this jot key. It's the same thing. And the jot key is basically, it's a string. It's what we use to encode or decode our token, our jot. So the key is not the same as the token. The key is what we use to encode or decode the token. It's just like a key to a door, right? We close the door and lock it with the key when we create, like if I go back here to the old example, or, oh, did I close that? No, here it is. So here, when we have like a register or authentication function, we have our object, a plain object, and we encode it with the jot key. And that makes the jot. It's like using this key to lock the door that is this object, I guess. So we use the key to lock the door, and then we use the key later to unlock the door when we decode it. And the key just comes from the env file. And it's just a string. We're just using jot key here, but usually it's something more secure that people wouldn't be able to just guess. Like, for example, let's see if we can generate one. How do we generate a jot key? I wonder how that's actually. There's an easy way to do that. Some commands. Yeah, use some algorithm to generate like an encoded string. It usually just looks like a lot of random characters, but for us, it doesn't matter. We're just using jot key. Usually it's something stupid like this, like something like that, but we're just doing jot key to keep it simple. So yeah, it's just what we use to create the jot or decode it. So where was that? Oh yeah, so we have all the boilerplate done for our API. All this stuff is mostly going to be the same for every API, express API that you make. There's other frameworks like Koa. Koa is very similar. There's just minor differences. They're made by the same person. Koa is another Node API. Nest is another API framework, like Node framework. That's a lot different than this. It kind of looks like Angular, actually. It's a lot different. It's kind of nice to use, but Express is probably the easiest one. Koa is too, but this is all the stuff that we need for every Express API, for the most part. Okay. So now let's start. Let's see. One of the requirements that I made for the final project. Did I close everything? Was must have get, post, put, and delete endpoints in your API. So if you're doing something like an email client, you would be fetching emails for your get, right? So remember the CRUD acronym? I think I mentioned that. Create, read, update, delete. That is basically what these methods do or for. We create data with post or put, and then we also update data with put usually. I think post is updating, put is usually creating. So we have create, and then get is read, right? So you read the thing and then you get it. We look at our database. That's what reading is. We just take data and we fetch it basically. Read the data. So create, put, read with get, update with post, and then delete with delete. So if we look at something like an email client, we are doing all those things for the most part. We create data when we send an email, right? It creates data. When we send an email, that'll create new data in our database. We read data when we fetch all of our emails and messages and stuff. We update data if we want to edit a message. Let's not look at Robinhood. Let's look at something. If we send an email, I think we can edit it. I don't have an example here that I can show. Sending one. But when you send an email, you can edit it. So that's updating. And then deleting is if you want to just like delete your messages. So that's creating, reading, updating, and deleting. I do, yeah. This used to be the email that I use only for things that I actually respond to, but then I don't know, some of my stuff, I don't know what happened. Most of it's Google Classroom notifications. Actually, look at all this from Martin and like students submitting stuff. It's most of them. Yeah, I hardly read any of them. I need to clean it up and unsubscribe to some stuff. Like Amazon Marketplace. Oh, I guess I'm signed into Amazon with that email. There's nothing here that I need to, like, I don't need to subscribe to Robinhood, I guess. That's like one out of all these ones. I don't really need to get Google Classroom notifications here, I guess. I don't really read them hardly ever. So I could unsubscribe to those. Yeah, I do have a lot. I don't really like email. Email is kind of annoying because it's like hard to follow. Gmail is okay, but like I also have an Outlook email for work. So I have two emails. And this one also has 6,000 messages or something. Something dumb. But yeah, so we have creating, reading, updating, deleting. All the examples of these. Zoho. What is Zoho? Wait, what's Zoho? Is that an email thing? Oh. You pay for it? I would never. I don't like email when it's free. I would never pay for it. It has to be pretty useful for me to pay for it. Or is that the one that there was an email client I heard about a while ago that like cut down on spam emails or clutter or something? That might have been Zoho. I don't remember. Oh, yeah, there was some email client I heard about a while ago that seemed like it was really nice and cut down on subscription emails and stuff. And it was easy to use. I don't remember what it was called though. I forgot to try it out. But anyway, so we have creating, reading, updating, deleting are 4 different kinds of data operations, I guess you could say. And we need to make 4 endpoints to do those things. So with regards to an email client, we need to get data. So let's do first create data. Well, first, actually, sorry, what we should do is create our table to store our data. So in my Gmail clone data schema database, I'm going to create a table for the emails. So if we have authentication, we need a user table, and then we also need at least one other table for just storing the data for our app, right? So the user table to store your user for authentication, user/users if you have more than one. And then also we need another table just to store the regular main data. So like in my case, it would be the emails. So I'm going to just make those 2 tables now. See, double click on this, create table, user. You know what? I'm going to copy these commands. So I've given you guys these commands before, I think. So if we want to make user, oh, where was it? I might have to go back past the memes. Or actually, I think what I can do is go to car data, tables, user, send SQL to editor, user. Okay. This is what we need: username, email, password, timestamp. If I do apply, I think it should show me. I have to rename it different. To apply, then it'll show me the create statement. So I can just copy this and then use this here. So under Gmail clone data, I can now put this. And create table, we have to get rid of the backticks for some reason. All right, get rid of the backticks and make sure this is named right. So Gmail clone data instead of car data, Gmail clone data dot user. All right, now this will make our username, email, password, create time. Is it not going to make our ID column? We'll see. I'm just going to run this. Create table, and if I refresh, we have our user table, and it has, we need to create ID column. So under user, if I go to the little info thing, go to columns, and then I have to run a query for everything. I don't like workbench. So here we have to let's see, update. I don't remember what it is. Let's see. Create table. The nice thing that was nice about SQL Pro was you didn't have to run queries for everything. You could just double click and add a column anytime. It's pretty nice. I have to remember the actual create table statement syntax. Create table and table name. Oh, not table, column. Let's see. Create column, add columns. Alter table and then add column. Okay. So we want to do alter table and the name of the table, user. And then we want to add an ID column. So column name will just be ID. And then alter table, create column, ID, column. Alter table, add column, not create. I can't. Add. Okay. Expecting, oh, we need to add the type. So we need to do it like this. Oh, it's int. I don't know the syntax of this. Column name, column definition. I think definition is the same as the type. Int, oh, here we go. Here's an example for ID. Oh yeah, we just add int after and then auto increment and primary key. Okay, I'm just gonna add this.
Is there a benefit from creating it like this compared to just clicking the options?
Options? Is there a way to just...
Yeah, if you right click tables, you can create a table.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Oh yeah. So this is easier. Yeah, so there's not a benefit. I just forgot you could do that. Thank you.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm just used to like being able to go in here and just double clicking and make one, but I forgot you could do create table. Thank you. So new table, user, sick. Well, we already did table. We want to go to columns. Can we create column? No. Will not let us make an individual column. I'm sure there's a way. Oh, column name?
I think if you hit the user, like if you hover over user,
yeah,
and then you hit that little wrench, it lets you customize them.
Ah.
Right?
Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. Makes sense. So we just need the ID column, and then we need... Oh, this is short for auto increment. It looks like... Can I not normal. Auto increment. Sick. This is not... Put that first. Oh, I can drag and drop. Nice. So this, I'm assuming NN is not null, so we don't want the ID column to be null. We want auto increment. Oh, here. Oh, unsigned. Primary key. Okay. Primary key generated. I think. Why can't we do... Oh, it's varchar, that's why. Oh, we have to change this to int. And then do auto increment. Unsigned, so it's only positive numbers, not null. And I think unique. I don't know what generated is, but I think that's all we need. Primary key. Primary key. It's not super important to know what it is right now, but it basically just means that you can use this column, the value in this column, to specifically identify a row. So it's always unique, and you can use that to like pull a specific row, which is what ID is used for. So that's why we check primary key. Apply. Apply. Successful, I think. So if we take a look. Okay, now we have ID and everything we need. All right. Auto increment. Not null. Okay. That's fine. There's no default value.
Can you go back to the options that you selected so I can match it up?
Yeah. What was it? Columns. What did I just do?
Just
Yeah,
the
so
reg.
ID, yeah. And then it was here. There you go. All right. And then you can, okay, yeah. I think there's a way to copy the code that you use. I thought there was a way to like copy the code you use to make the whole table. Like, is it copy a clipboard? That's just the name. Can I do table data? I think there is a way. I don't remember how to do it though. There's create table like, so you could like make a table just like this one, just with a different name. That's what I was just trying to do. But you could just right click, make the table name, and then add the values here with the little edit UI. All right, so we have the user table, and then we need the emails table to hold our emails. So create table, emails. And then we want, oh, we can add here. So we want, we want a ID for the email. We're gonna want, what else? If we look at Gmail, what else comes with an email? Let's see, what's one we can use as an example? Here we go. So it has a title, it has who it's from, like it has their name. In Gmail, we can simplify this a little bit. We don't have to be as fancy as Gmail with like names and profile pictures and stuff. So let's just keep it kind of simple. We have the title, or the subject, I think is all that's called in an email, the subject line or something. So the subject, and we have who it's from, so we can have their email. It's going to be a string. Subject is going to be a string. Who it's from is going to be a string. The body of the email, we'll just have that be a string. So that's three things: the subject, who it's from, the body. What else? Oh, the timestamp. And that's the most important part. We could do some extra stuff like CC'd if anyone's CC'd, stuff like that. But let's just keep it simple. So we have these four things, right? Subject, who it's from, who it's to. I guess we could add that, even though, yeah, let's just add that. Even though obviously it's to me since it's in my my freaking inbox. But if you have more than one user, I guess, then this is important to know which ones to show for which user. So we'll add that. So let's see, one thing, two things, 3, 4, and then the body. That's 5. So from, to, date, subject, body. All strings. None of them are numbers or anything. Nothing weird. It's just all strings, I think. So what we're going to need is we have the ID. Then we have from, to, subject, the body of the email, and then the timestamp. Sure. They're all going to be varchars. From and to don't need to be more than 45. Subject. How many characters is this? We can use this as an example. Subject can be like, if you guys ever want to find the length of a string really easily, like not programmatically, obviously, but if you just want to see how long some words are, like how many characters, if you paste it in VS Code, and look at the bottom here, it says line 24, column 82. Like down here where it's highlighted. I don't know if you guys can see that on my screen. So at the bottom it says line 24 and then column 82. What that means is we're on line 24. This line is, where my cursor is. It's wherever your cursor is looking at. Line 24. And then the column is the character. So if I put my cursor at the very beginning, it's column 1. And if I go to the right, 2, 3, 4, all the way. So if I click it at the end here, it says 82. So there's 81 characters, I guess, since it starts at 1 here. So this whole thing is 81 characters. So that's a nice shortcut. See how long a line of code is. So this looks like 81. So I'll just make it 100 characters for the subject. That will probably be enough. So subject, 100. Body is going to be a lot bigger. So let's not go too crazy, but we could do, can I see how many characters this is? Yeah. Let's just do something like 1,000 characters. Let's do 5,000. 5,000 probably fine. So the body can be 5,000 characters long. The timestamp is going to be datetime type. So we can change this to datetime. And that's it, I think. So we need to change some other settings. So to and from should not be null. Subject and body can be, timestamp should not be. All right, so we should always have to and from for any message. Should always have the timestamp. But theoretically, not every email is going to have a subject or a body. Like it's possible that that could be null. So we can add not null here for to and from, and also the timestamp. What else? They don't have to be unique. They're not the primary key. We have a primary key with the integer. So primary key, we want this to be auto increment for the ID. And unsigned and unique. Okay. What else do we need for these other ones? I don't think we need anything else for the rest of these. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and apply this and create the emails table. Apply, successful emails. Now, if you look here, now we have our nice emails table with no data in it yet. So we have the ID, from, to, subject, body, and the timestamp for our emails. All right, so we have the basic structure for our database laid out. Now, We have our user table. We don't need to make data yet. We should start working on the what our endpoints are actually going to do. So this is where Insomnia is useful. Since we don't have a front end made yet, right? We're making the API first. We don't have a front end interface made, so we can use Insomnia to test things. So let's just, first I'm going to comment out the verified drop middleware. So we can just make at least one endpoint, one normal endpoint, and try to hit that just to make sure that our API is able to even run. So let's do our get endpoint first. So get emails. So how do we do that? We can reference the database demo repo, and we get. So we need to get endpoint that gets all the emails for a certain user, for the user that's logged in. So how do we do that? Well, theoretically, we're going to have our jot set when we log in, and then we can use our decoded jot, with request.user later, to get the email from our user payload, and then use that to fetch emails with that email, right? Since we only want emails associated with the person's logged in, right? I'm only getting emails that are to, that are to Connor Steele 62 at gmail.com. So we're only going to want to fetch emails that have Connor Steele 62 in the to column. So first, let's just do the basic app.get. Minimize this. App.get. And then we'll just do /emails. And then we have async, right? Async function request and response. And then here we go. And then we should almost always have a try catch block inside of our endpoints to handle for errors. So try catch. And then in here, we're going to want to make a query from our table to fetch emails. So we don't have any emails made yet. I'm going to go ahead and make one. Let's just do ID1, do from Taylor, or what's Marty's email? I'll use his as an example, or I'll use Quincy Larson, whoever this is. Quincy at freecodecamp.org. So I'll do from him to me. Subject, I'll just recreate this email for the most part, actually. I'll take the subject line. And the body, I don't know if this is more than 5,000 characters, but I will just take like this here. That's probably fine. Body will be here. Oh. Copy. Oh, it did paste. It's just, okay. So we have the body there and the timestamp. You can just put in now here. Can I not do that? Oh. Timestamp. I'll just do this. To insert a timestamp, I'll do insert into emails. Then the column name, timestamp, let's see, what is it? To reference a lot of things for SQL because I don't use it too often. So insert into table name, and then yeah, parentheses. Okay. I think there's a different way to do it for just one, but we can do it this way. Emails, parentheses, time, stamp, values, and then now. Put in just the current date time to this column. And then we need a where statement values now, where ID equals 1, because we want to add it to this row. Where ID equals 1. And then do I need another? Oh, I can do update column instead. Or update, yeah. I don't need to insert. This is for inserting a row. I already have a row. I'm updating a row. All right. Update. Oh, what is it? Update column, MySQL. Update column. Oh, update table name set. Oh yeah, update and then set and then where. Okay. Update emails and then set time stamp equal to now. And then where ID equals 1. So updating this column or this table, setting this column to this value where ID equals 1. And then that should work. And then if I refresh this, okay, boom. So it said it was successful, but it won't let me refresh it. Very cool. Why did I get rid of it? Wait. What? Excuse me? Where was it? Gmail. Emails table. Emails. How do I actually, do I do apply? Oh, that's annoying. Save changes. Apply. There's an error. Incorrect date time value. Oh, I can't insert these without date time. Okay. So I need to add a timestamp. I should have just inserted them all at the same time with the SQL command. This is kind of dumb. Here. I'll just add a hypothetical date. 2038. There we go. Close. So it would have been easier if I had just made the insert endpoint first and then inserted some data before trying to get it, but oh well. That's okay. Now we have some data in our emails table. All right. So now we can make an endpoint to get this. at least. All right. So our endpoint doesn't right now have to actually do that. We're just making this so that we know there's no problems like up here connecting to our database, um, or our middleware or anything. Just to make sure we can hit some endpoint in our API. I'm just going to do this, and I'm just going to console log /emails success exclamation point. Save it, and then, well, if it gets there, then it's not going to be an error. So I'll just do that. I'm going to run nodemon index.js. And work projects, yeah. Gmail and API. Nodemon index.js. What is that? Oh, it's a bcrypt problem. I'll figure that out later. I did this before in someone. There. So I just commented out bcrypt requires statement because for some reason that was throwing an error. I'll have to figure that out later. So we're running it now. Let's see if we can hit this endpoint with Insomnia. So localhost 3000. Or well, because it's HTTP / localhost 3000 /emails, and it's a GET. Okay. I think that's it. Send. Is it not making it? Looks like it's hanging. So I'm gonna cancel it. Localhost 3000 /emails. Oh, it did make it. It just took forever for some reason. Oh, because I'm not returning a response, that's why. So it made it to this endpoint, but it's not returning a response. That's why it was not ending right on Insomnia. So if we just do this, response.json, put that here, and then run it again. And we get email success. So now we have our first endpoint. So now we can make the blueprint for our other ones, right? So we're gonna need 4 endpoints at least, 4 like main endpoints, not including registering and logging in. We're gonna need get, put, post, and delete. So now we have our 4. Is that 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So we have a get. We can have a put. We can have a post, and then a delete. All right. So now we have those. We can do the bulk of that later. So now let's start doing authentication. Let's actually take another break. It's been an hour again. Let's take a 20-minute break this time to eat, probably. Does anyone have any questions so far? Again, you don't have to be even listening to me while I go through this. If you want to be working on your projects, you can watch it later. But
so response JSON we're just hard coding a response
for now, right? Right now.
So how do you go about actually accessing that data instead of just hard coding it?
We would do our query just like here, right? We would just make a query based off
Gotcha.
of the to, right? So this is to me. For fetching emails sent to me, we would get the email for the person that's logged in with request dot user, which is going to get set when we log in and register. So that's why I was going to do that next. So basically,
Okay,
we would do a query that's like
select star.
select all. It would be select all from emails where to equals like request.user dot email.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Why did you place, or what did you place in header for Insomnia? I missed that part. There was nothing in the header. Well, there was actually something, but I don't think you need this even for the get request. But here, I think you do need it for posts, so I'll just give it to you anyway. For now, that's all I have. Yeah, so when we get emails, it'll just be a query. And we're going to use request.user, because that's going to get our user info from the jot. So we can use request.user.email to do select all from emails where, you know, to equals request.user.email. All right. So let's come back 5:55 and I'll keep going. All right, I'm back. So far, I am, what do I have? Oh yeah, we made our endpoint. We can reach our endpoint, so our API at least is working. Oh, and this is running too, so I think our database connection works fine. Or else it would have probably thrown an error when we did this here. So that's a good sign too. So now I'm going to do authentication. I'm going to get authentication going. So if we look at our reference API here, we go up to register. Let's see. We could probably copy and paste this. I'm going to copy and paste this. Here. So this is our register function. And we put this before our verified job middleware. Because you shouldn't have to already be logged in to register or log in, right? That doesn't make sense. So put it here after the cores and the body parser middleware functions. I'm just going to put it here. Is there anything you need to change? / register is fine. User. I don't think there's anything I need to change here. I'll probably make this return something besides just the jot. I'm gonna add some better error handling, I think. So a try catch around our query here to actually insert the user and create the user in our user table. But if an error happens here, then it just console logs it. And as we noticed before, when it doesn't return anything and there's an error or anything at all, if it doesn't return anything, well, actually, if there is an error here, then I think it will just error out. But we should still return something. So we should return something to our client no matter what. So I'm just going to do response.json. And then I'm going to return, it's just an error message, error creating user. Error, yeah, that's fine. And then, oh, we already, yeah. And then I'll return the same thing down here. What is this? Are there 2 try catch blocks? There are. What is this? Oh, there's one inside of another, I forgot. It's kind of weird. So I'll do this. Creating jot or authentication token. There. So this is working, it's gonna work mostly the same as it did in our other one, right? So it's basically doing the same thing. We get the body with the password, email, first name and last name from the front end. We just insert those values in the table, encode the password before we insert it. And then we encode it, including the user ID, which we get from our insert statement. So when we do insert into something, it returns a value. And then we use that value to get the insert ID, which is the ID that is for the new, what am I trying to say? For the new record that you inserted. And that will be the user ID. Okay, so we have user.insert ID is user ID. And then we have the rest of the body here. And then that's how we're making encoded user with just our jot, and then that's what we're returning here. All right. We should usually return an actual message or something. But for now, this is fine. For what we're doing, this is okay. We're just keeping it simple. Just returning the jot that we're going to then store in the front end. Okay. And then the /auth one is going to be similar. So I'm going to copy and paste this and then get rid of a few things. Probably I'm going to change it a little bit. So we have /register, then we have I'm going to do login instead of just /auth. Login. Then we compare it to the email, right? We compare emails to make sure that there's actually a user with that email. If there isn't, then we return email not found. I'm going to get rid of some of these console logs from now. Response to JSON. I'm going to add an error message here. Just kind of a generic one. That's okay. So we have user. If there is an email, then we have the user object. Then we get the user.password. And we use bcrypt. Oh, that's right. We have to use bcrypt. And I commented out bcrypt. So we use bcrypt to then compare the plain text password that we're getting from the front end to the encoded one that we're looking at in the database. If they're equal, then we make the payload return a jot. And if they're not, we return an error message. So now I need to figure out why bcrypt wasn't working before. I'm going to Google this. I have no idea what this means. So I'm going to Google this. Bcrypt. Bcrypt. Try recompiling the add-on. Rebuild bcrypt. I'll try that if there isn't something else. Might be a node version problem. Oh, let me try this. nvm use. And then I'm going to, so I'm using node. When I make a new terminal, my node version defaults to 9. And sometimes your node version might not work nice with certain versions of certain packages. So I think that might be the problem. And when you change your node version, you need to make sure you reinstall your node modules using that version. So I went from 9. When I ran npm I was on version 9. I switched to version 10. So I need to delete the node modules and then run npm I again while I'm on version 10. It took very long. And then I'm going to try running it again, see if that fixed it. Probably didn't, but oh, it did. So that was the problem. So I was getting this error because I was on node version 9, and node version 9 doesn't play nice with whatever version of bcrypt I was using. So I just upgraded to 10 using MVM. If you guys don't have MVM, and I recommend you get it. It's very nice, very useful for just changing node versions. Here, in case anyone's interested. It's not required, but it is pretty nice because it's just save you a lot of trouble with like compatibility issues like that. You guys probably won't have as many as me because everything you're doing is like a fresh install for pretty much everything. When we first installed Node, you guys probably installed Node 12, which works fine with most things, but MVM is a nice thing to have just in case. Just in case you need to change your Node version for some reason. All right, so that's that, I think. So, what was I doing? Oh yeah, authentication. So yeah, bcrypt. Yeah, I uncommented that. And we have register and login. Should be okay, I think. So I'm going to try using the register endpoint. I'm going to do that through Insomnia. All right, so we've done this before. Make sure I unmuted. Yeah. Okay. We've done this before. We want to hit post /register. Content type, application JSON, and then we need to add the body. So we're expecting email, first name, last name, password. Right? Post /register, and then the body with these things. So we have post /register, and then we make the body with email. Email. Can't spell. Name. Name. How come you don't have user ID as a SQL insert item? That's a good question. The reason why we don't insert the ID is because the ID is set to auto increment. So when we made this before, we look at the columns. I added I wish I could zoom in still, but actually, if you look at this screenshot that I sent, that's what the auto increment option is for. So you don't have to add anything in the ID column, because since auto increment is selected, it'll automatically insert into that column and increment the value from the previous one. So that's what that is for. That's why we don't insert one. So say we have, you'll see in a minute when I make one, but say we have already have a user and the ID is 1, then we insert another one, it'll automatically increment the ID to for the next one to be 2. So we don't have to add the ID when we do the insert statement because of auto increment. That way we don't accidentally add a duplicate one or like do out of order numbers or something. SQL just handles it for us. It's pretty nice. All right. So first name, last name, password. Password. Okay, it's just going to be password. All right. Post /register, and we have the body. And then no headers right now, just content type application JSON. And let's see if this works. Oh. What is this? Unknown column F name in field list. Huh? What? Oh, I didn't actually add. Wait. Oh, I didn't add first name or last name to this table. I just have username. Why did I have username? I don't remember why. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna replace this. F name, and then this is for user. Create time, you don't need create time. Oh, I copy this from something else. Don't need this. Can I cut? Yeah. Email, user, fill name. There. So I was getting that error, unknown column f name, field list. That just means whenever you see unknown column, that means that whatever column you're trying to do something with in your query probably doesn't exist in your table. So I didn't have, in this case, f name in my table, but I was trying to insert something into a column named f name, but that didn't exist. So it's throwing that error. So I just changed that, and hopefully that fixes it. Can I save, apply? Yeah. Drop column, add column, change column. Okay, close. And if we look here, now we have f name, l name, email, password. Let's try that again. I'm going to restart my server. And try it again. What is it this time? Data too long for column password. Oh, I need to change the data type for password too. So password, or password is varchar. If we look at the user table in our other database, it is blob, blob, binary large object. That's just the encoding for the password. So I need to change that to blob. And this, not null. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Apply, close, and we'll try it another time. So this error was saying data too long for column password. I was trying to insert the hash, which is a lot of characters. It's probably a lot more than whatever, 45 characters or something, because it was varchar. It was just password was the wrong type. It needs to be binary large object because we're inserting something that's encoded. So let's try it again. And I think that worked. We got our drop back from response. What is this console log? Oh yeah, we're console logging user here. So that looks like it worked. And we look in database for user, and there I am. Boom. So we have register working. And this is just the way we want it to work. Inserts the information into the user table and then returns the encoded jot, which we're going to do something with on the front end. All right. All right, so register works. Login. Login should be fine. So now we need to test logging in. So we just hit /login with email and password. All right, so that's the only thing I think. Cross.body, we're only using email password. So it's still a post, just a /login this time. Log in. And then we just need email password. I'm just going to use the same one. I'll make sure that this works. Same email, same password as I used to register. And it looks like that worked. We got a drop back, which is what we wanted because it returns it down here. All right, so now register and login both work. And then we also have our endpoints down here. Now let's test our verified jot middleware. So now let's take this jot. I'm going to copy it. Copy this so I don't lose it. I'm going to uncomment the verified jot middleware. Now let's try hitting /emails again, but this time where you need to add, we need to add an authorization header. So just like we're doing, where is it? Here. In the front end, this is the Angular repo from GitHub that I showed with you guys. Just like in the front end, we add the jot to the header. So we can do that in Insomnia. We just add the header authorization, and then we add bearer, and then we can just paste the jot there. Right, so go away. What is this? Excuse me. I don't know why it's doing that. Authorization. There. All right, so then we just bearer space, and then I pasted this jot that I got back from my login endpoint. All right, so yeah, just doing the same thing that we were doing here on the front end, the Angular front end. We just don't have an Angular front end for this project yet. This is just for Node. So we're just doing the same thing. Trying to hit /emails, that's right. We get to /emails. So we go /emails, and it's a get. We don't need the body here. Let me try this. If did this right, then should, yeah, it's a success. And if we don't have the header, so I'm going to copy paste this whole thing, remove it. If that doesn't have a value, then it should throw an error or something. Yep, there's an error because it doesn't have the authorization header. So when it gets to here, it's not going to have scheme, and it's just going to throw this error. We should be returning something instead of just throwing an error here. But that's okay. If I put this back, cancel request, send it again, then it's fine. All right. All right, so now we successfully have authentication with just these two big blocks of code, pretty much, or well, 3 big blocks of code. We have authentication for our API. Now, if we look when we log in or register, I think payload, right? And then when we log in, does it set request.user? Did I miss that? Oh, it does. Oh, this is, oh, it does it in verify job. That's right. It's payload. Okay. And then when we log in, we pull the user information from the database, set that as the payload, and then that's the jot. And then later on, we use that jot, pass it to the front end, and then we decode it. So it does that for register and login.
What was the scheme again?
The scheme is what is it in the header, or what is it like checking for?
What's it checking for?
So the scheme is just the first part, the bearer part of the string. So if we look at the header, we have bearer space. Scheme is just like different apps have different like schemes. I guess it's just like a format for like a header. So in our case, we just have bearer is like a type of authentication, I think, or something. I don't remember exactly why we have bearer, but it's just a certain format that we follow. And we just have bearer at the beginning. So if the header has bearer at the beginning and then space and then the token, we check for that here. So we get the header, and then we do .split on the white space. So that turns this whole string here. I think I can show you guys. Oh yeah, I already did this. So yeah, so we have bearer space and the token, and then all this is doing is splitting it on the space, so here, and then that turns it into an array, and that array has two elements, which is bearer and then the token, and then we destructure that out. So this gets the first element from the array, then the second element, and we just give them to the we assign them to constants, scheme, and token, and then we can log those, and that's what it's logging here. We have scheme, which is just bearer, and the token is the jot. So that's just checking to make sure we have the word bearer at the beginning, and if it doesn't, then it throws an error. I wish I could remember the specifics of why we use bearer. There's different like schemes, I think, for breaking. Bearer token. I think it's like the way that we encode the jot or something. I think, I don't remember. We just have to have word bearer at the beginning, because that's what we do. Yeah, so it just checks for that at the beginning of the header. And if it doesn't have that, there was the error. If it does, then it keeps going. So I think bearer is like the way that we're encoding the string with the jot. Like I think a jot is a bearer token. Technically, it's just like a kind of like a convention for encoding information. I think that's what it is. But really all I know is that we just have to have the word bearer at the beginning. And that's it. What is this? All right. So emails was a success. And oh yeah, so we're getting our payload, right? Request.user. Since we gave a jot in our header, and then when we hit emails, it goes through verified jot, and then it gets the token, decodes it, makes it into a plain object, and it sets that onto request.user, which we can use later. So if we just do, instead of console logging emails success, console log request.user, we can see what that is. So we're setting it in verified jot. So request is like a persistent thing that we can use, right? It's the same all throughout our request. And we're setting it .user to payload here. And we should be able to use that later on in emails. So since we're setting the jot here, if we click send, we see our console log here, request.user is information about our user. So this is going to be whoever is currently logged in. So whoever is logged in, you'll be sending that jot in the header, and they can use that to get their information to that user. So this is how we're going to fetch our emails, right? So on any email client, you're just looking at emails that are to you. So when I'm logged in, my email is going to be set as ConnorSteele62@gmail, right? So that's what this is. So if we fetch all emails in our emails table that are to that email, then those are the ones that belong to me, that I should be seeing on my main page of my email client. All right. So we can use this email here, request.user.email, and we can do our query, request.db.query, or actually it's await, isn't it? We have to do await on the query, yeah. So, oh, we have to const emails equals await. Request.db.query, and then we need to pass it the string for the query, and then we can specify our where statement condition. So request.user .query. We do select all from emails, right? So emails. Select all from emails where where 2 equals user email. And then we can set user email by passing this object. So let me format this a little nicer. So this object, we're going to have user email is going to be request.user.email, which is this over here. All right. And this should be what we want. I don't see anything wrong with this. I'm going to return emails. Emails. And then I'm going to console log if there's an error here. Console log. And then I'm going to return an error message. Or let's see, error fetching emails. Or I guess I should console log that before I return it. Yeah, okay. So let's try this. /emails, and this should just return a response. /emails, we have our jot, it's a get, we don't need a body, send. Error fetching emails. What was the error? Let me get rid of this. Error in, I'm not console logging the actual error. I should do that. So let's see what the problem was. I bet you it's some SQL syntax error. Error in your SQL syntax. I bet you I can't have a column named 2 for some reason. That might be a keyword. 2. See if I do another column, like I should have named this something besides 2. Let me see if 2 is a keyword in SQL. Maybe it's not. So what else? Select all from emails where 2 equals user email. User email is this. 2 equals, I think it's the table name or the column name. Let me try something else. Let's do, instead of 2, we'll do recipient. That makes more sense. Recipient, apply. Close. Then recipient. So let's see if that was the problem. 2 feels like it should be a keyword or something. So I think that's what the problem was, but we'll see. Let's try it again. Oh, there we go. So that was the problem. For some reason, didn't like having 2 as a column name, because that was probably a keyword. So I changed it to recipient, and then that works fine. Returns us an array with an array in it. What we really want is this object, right? So we can destructure this a little bit. So I'm just going to do emails. And then try it again. So this is our array. Yeah. So we only have one result. Can't zoom in, can I? Oh. Only have one result. So there's only one object in our array. But if there were more than one, if I had more than one email, then obviously we would be getting an array of objects. And each object would represent an email with the ID, who it's from, and who it's going to, and the subject and the body, and then the timestamp that it was created or sent or received or whatever. All right. Now we're fetching, we're reading from our database with a GET request successfully. Now let's try to create some data. So we're going to be sending an email or creating data, right? So let's do that in our put request. So we're going to need to send from the front end this information. Or well, the ID is auto increment, and the timestamp is going to come from our now function, just like in our other reference. It's going to be like this, right? Where date created is the now function. We're going to do the same thing for the timestamp. So we don't need to send that from the front end either. The only things we need to send from the front end are from, recipient, subject, and body. So can someone tell me where that's going to come from? How we get that stuff from the front end? How are we going to access the object that's going to be sent from the front end? In the body. Anyone? Someone has to know. When we're sending an object from the front end to the back end, how do we get that in our endpoint? Request.body. Well, it's in a post. Yeah, when you do a post request, you're sending data. But I was asking for request.body because that's how we access that object that's being sent from the front end in your endpoint. So we're sending an object from the front end, like in login, for example, and we get that with request.body, and then we can get the properties on it, like email or whatever. So it's request.body. So request.body is going to have probably from, recipient, subject, and body. So we need to make a database query to insert that information in our emails table. Okay. So we do await request.db.query. Then we do our SQL stuff, insert into emails. And then we have, oh, that's right, column names, right? So if we go back to the database demo, we have the column names and then the values. That's the syntax. Column names, let me format this. How did I format it before? Oh, it was like that. Okay. So column names, we're gonna have inserting from recipient subject body. So from recipient subject body. And then the values. How did I do that? Oh, next slide. Oh, it was not inside the parentheses. Oh, subject body. And then here, values. And then another one. And then the values are going to be kind of the same thing, right? Oh, we also need to insert the timestamp. So that's not going to come from the body. It's going to come from the SQL now function, but we still need to add it here. Timestamp. So the values are just going to be these same things. So these are placeholders. So these same things, but with the colon at the beginning. Subject, and then body, and then we use the now function to insert into the timestamp. So these have to be in the same order. So we have from, and then recipient, subject, body, timestamp. From, recipient, subject, body, timestamp. And then we get our object to actually give those placeholders some values. So it's gonna be the same thing from recipient, subject, body. So what we could do here is actually just do, I'll just do it simple. I'm not gonna do anything fancy. I'm just do from quest dot user, or not user, request.body. From recipient request.body.recipient. Subject request.body.subject. Body request.body.body. All right. So now we're getting these values from the body that we're going to be sending from the front end and inserting them into our database. Okay. So let's try it. Put to slash emails. We'll just make this singular email because we're creating or sending one email, right? Not more than one. We're only working with one email that we're sending or creating. And we'll do email success. And then error in slash email. Console log the error. And then if there's an error, then we do responsive JSON. Error sending email. All right. So I think that's all we need. I'm gonna get rid of this console log. We don't need that since we're returning something. All right, let's try this. We have our header. We're doing a put to slash email. And then the body is going to need the email that we're sending. So from, let's do from Another one. Let's do another one. An Amazon. There's my front yard. Nice. Okay. From this order update at Amazon.com. From here. And then recipient. Because we need to know who this is going to. It's going to be me. Subject was delivered. I'm just going to take this part. And then the body. Body is going to be, oh, it's a picture. Oh, never mind. Here, I'll just add this part. Oh, why can't it? It's kind of weird. The new lines are messing it up. Oh, that's weird. All right, so let me get rid of this new lines in. And I'll just add \n is the new line character. It'll add a new line everywhere. In case you guys didn't know. So like here, if I added, so here we're logging this big string. If I add right after the 9 here, \n, it adds a new line right after the 9. Or in front of this 9 down here, \n, it adds a new line. So I'm just going to do this. This. Okay. All right. So this is the email that we're sending. I think that's all we need. Put/email. I'm going to try sending it. There's an error, my SQL syntax. Close. Near from insert into emails. What am I missing here? Insert into table name and then parentheses, the table names, or the column names. Then values, and then the placeholders. What am I missing here? Insert into is from a keyword also. So that's the thing you have to watch out for in SQL is keywords. So if you ever see something that looks like it should work, but it doesn't, it might be because you're using a keyword. So I think from might also be a keyword. Let me see. And if you use a keyword for something, like when you're trying to reference, it's the same thing as doing naming a variable const or something in JavaScript. It'll throw an error. Let me see. False. From, yeah, it is. So this is really handy. Let me give this to you guys. Reserved words and keywords. So from is here. And I had a column name from, which was badly named. So I'm going to rename from to sender or sent from. Yeah. Sent from, and then I'm going to change this to sent to. Sent from and sent to. Makes sense. Kind of like the opposites of each other. So then I need to change that back up here where sent to. And then here we do sent from. All right. Let's try it again. Is it why? Unknown column. Send. Oh, I can actually save this. I have to click apply. Apply. There we go. Start it and retry. Error sending email. What is it now? Unknown column recipient. Oh, this is, I changed this to sent to. All right. Let's go again. Email success. Okay, so that's a success. We got our email success response back. Let's see if it inserted it into our database, right? And it did. So now we have my Amazon message here, the subject. And then the body, just a big long string. The timestamp was the time that I hit this endpoint. All right, so now we have reading data with get and creating data with a put. So that's two of our requirements for our API, for our final project. Main problems I ran into doing this was just naming my tables bad. So simple words are, there's a lot of simple common words that are in SQL that are keywords, like obviously from and to you can't use. So you should name your columns a little bit more specific, like sent from, sent to, instead of just from and to like I was doing. All right, so most of what we have, or what I have here, was copy and pasted from the other project. The bulk of the work, like all I did was remove some console logs and add a couple nicer, like responses when it, when there's an error, like here. But most of it, I just copy and pasted. And then so far I have these two endpoints that do exactly what we need them to do for getting data, so reading data, and then also creating data. So getting emails, fetching emails. Does anyone have any questions about any of this? I know it seems like a lot. I know it has seemed like a lot the past few weeks, but really, this looks like a lot, but more than half of this file was copy and pasted from the example. And then even the stuff I did that was different is still following the same format from before, right? We're still doing select statements the same way. Like this syntax is the same as this, or yeah, as this. And then this syntax, ignore the loop here. This syntax though, this insert statement is the same as this one. It just has different columns that we're inserting data into. And then you just have to make your own schema and your own tables, figure out what things you need for your main like data source, right? So for emails, every email needs these things, right? Needs who it's from, who it's to, the subject line, the body. Every table probably is going to have an ID column. And then we have a timestamp for most things. So really your first steps just be figuring out what kind of data you have, what things you need for that data. You make your tables, make all your boilerplate, and you make your endpoints, which just insert data or fetch data from those from that table. Is it okay to use a app.post function to insert column data? Yes, generally you use put to create new data and post to update something. So you can use post to create a new row. Generally use it to update data and like insert new data into a row. So you can. I think that's what you meant. To insert column data. Do you mean like insert certain, like if I wanted to update the subject or something here and like insert new data, is that what you mean? Or do you mean, yeah, you can. Technically you could also use, well, I guess you can't send a body with Git. So yeah, you could do that with post. You could switch them if you want. It's not that big of a deal. Like you can use post and put for pretty much the same things. But like when we edit emails, right? If we edit an email, we're probably just gonna do /email. And the way you differentiate that on the front end, right? Because we're doing /email for both endpoints. The only way it knows which one you want to hit is because you use post instead of put. So you can use them for the interchangeably, but you should make them do different things, if that makes sense. Yeah. Because they both take a body, right? And you can do anything inside these endpoints. Like the method here doesn't affect anything that you do inside here, except for the fact that posts and puts receive request.body. And I think you can't even do that with a GET request, but usually you don't. So for this post, I was going to use this for update. I'll still do this. I'll probably continue this next week. If you guys want. So I'm going to use post to update an email. So you can do that in Gmail at least. If the person hasn't received your email yet, I think you can edit it. So I could do something like updating the subject line of the body. And that's what I'm going to do with this post endpoint. And then deleting is obviously just going to be deleting a certain email. So. All right, any other questions? Again, I know it's a lot, but almost all this was copy and pasted. And then this stuff follows a really similar format. Just remember, you're doing just 4 different things: creating, reading, updating, deleting with 4 different endpoints. And then you just have to figure out what kind of data you're creating, reading, updating, and deleting. So. And next time I'll get to the Angular part, which I've already done a little. I showed you guys a little bit of before, but so you guys have more stuff to reference. Hopefully it'll help. Again, we still have I think we have 2 weeks. It's the 8th in 2 weeks. I think the 8th is, yeah, the 8th is in 2 weeks. That'll be our last Monday class. And then our last class will be the 13th. And even if you're not done by then, you can still turn it in a little bit later, and it's not a big deal, but that will just be the last week of class. So. All right. I will be doing, I think, I'll be doing another review session this Wednesday, 6 to 7. Yeah, of course. Yeah, oh, thank you for reminding me. I'll post it. Stop sharing. And